World, Waxvillain, Seattle, Washington. You already know what it is. Welcome to Waxvillain Fireside Chat. We got greatness in the building. Pulling up all the way up from Miami, Florida. We have Addison Rifkin and Mike Duffy of Fat Produce. Keep it locked. We'll kick things off real soon. Mama's in the house. Shout out to everybody that's pulling up. Tonight's going to be a lot of fun. Mike and Addison are going to be here real soon. Shout out to the Sunday Spins. We see it. Yeah, what's up, fellas? Give me 1 second.
What's going on?
The more I hear that song, the more I love it.
Have you guys heard that track before?
I don't recognize that one.
Never heard
Came
that
through
one
the
in my
mail.
life.
I figured let me put it on the table to warm the audience up, you know? Mike, it's fantastic to see you again. Addison, super nice to meet you. Thank you both for being here tonight. How y'all doing?
I'm well, man.
Very
living the life, baby.
What's the temperature like in Miami right now?
Oh, it's about 80s.
Nice. It's nice out,
Yeah.
even at 9 p.m., you know?
Okay. In Seattle, it's like, I don't know, 60 something. We're dying. I usually wear a sweatshirt. I had to put on a t-shirt today. I see we got 9-10 on the line. If you're ready, I'll go ahead and kick things off.
Let's do it.
I want to welcome everybody to Waxvillain Fireside Chat. Fireside Chats are similar to interviews. However, we take the time to do the research. We want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. More importantly, we want to support and strengthen everything that's out here. Now, tonight, we're in for a real treat, y'all. When I think about Fat Produce, right, the name is new, but these gentlemen certainly are not. In fact, I would go on to say that they are fixtures on the scene. And for over a decade, they have been crafting music that we have loved. If this is your first time tuning in, I want you to think about the Glades, Soul Vaccinators, Adam Scone and the Scone Cash Players. That's Addison. When it comes to Mike Duffy, Delvin Lamar, Oregon Trio, White Blinds, Bombillas, Oswald Motley, and Jungle Fire. I thought it would be fantastic to bring these fellas in tonight, have a talk about the new 45 on F-Spot Records, guitar trio. It's refreshing. I love the sound, so I want to get the inside scoop on it. Gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, buddy.
So just give us the quick little introduction. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and your why for making music.
Well, my name's Addison Rifkin. I am from Los Angeles, California, and more specifically, Studio City. And that's actually both of our hometowns, so we share that in common for sure. I started playing guitar when I was 6 years old, so that was about 20 some odd years ago. And I've been playing so many different styles since I first started. A lot of blues. I love old school hip hop, funk, thinking James Brown, all the classic soul performers, straight ahead jazz music as well. Anything guitar related and funky. So that's been my musical focus my whole life. So I've always done guitar, always loved music, and that continues today for sure.
I love that.
Well, most of y'all might know me on here. My name is Michael Duffy. I'm also from Studio City, California. Drummer, percussionist. I've been playing professionally since I was 13. I'm now 52, so a good chunk of my life on stage, touring around, playing all kinds of music, from living in Texas, playing music over there, to coming back to Southern California, founding member of Jungle Fire, along with the White Blinds. And now I'm on a new chapter here in Miami with Addison.
I love that. I love that. So I want to have some fun with this question here. You mentioned you're both from Studio City, Los Angeles, California. Now you live in Miami. Addison, tell us about the first time that you met Mike and something you appreciate about his style of drumming.
That's a great question. And we both always talk about that story all the time. So I'm glad you asked that. The first time we met was not in Los Angeles at all, and neither of us knew who each other were or had heard of each other. It was actually in Miami about 2 years ago now, playing with Adam Scone and the Scone Cash Players at a great little music venue here called Lanya. And we met on a gig. So our first interaction was probably more musical than any kind of conversation. And that's where we really hit it off right away. I mean, when you play with someone who has a similar background and love for the same kind of soul music and funk and jazz and soul jazz and all these similar artists that we have learned that we share, that's really an instantaneous kind of connection. And I mean, it's, you know, talking to him and getting to know him and all these LA bands and groups that I was a fan of forever, that he's connected to. It was like, you know, it was like we had already played with each other and knew each other pretty much.
Okay. Mike, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Tell me about what you remember about the first time you met Addison, and what stands out about the way he plays guitar compared to others on the scene.
So, like you said, we played at this club in Miami. I just got to town. Adam brought me out here and booked a gig, and I had no idea who was on the gig or what was going to happen. So we're probably the second song in of playing some just classic soul jazz, and he just for your traditional music fans, if a guitar player plays eighth notes, I'm like, but if a guitar player plays eighth notes, it's a different thing. And he had that thing, and we were finishing the song, and I said, you and I are going to make records together. And the way Addison plays for his age is he plays like he's got an old soul. You know, he can play all the jazz classic stuff that you would expect to hear, but he also understands the soul jazz language, which a lot of guys his age don't really understand, you know, that I've encountered. And so the tone, the taste, and most importantly, the rhythm was what really, I think, attracted us together. That we could immediately land on something and not have to have a conversation about it. We just landed there naturally. And very similar, very almost extremely similar to my relationship with Judson McDaniel, Patrick Bailey in Jungle Fire, or Matt Hornbeck in the White Blinds, or even Tyler Nuffer in the Bombillas. Like, it's a very natural thing with those guitar players. And as I've said many times, the guitar player is a big influence on how I play the drums. Not the bass player, not the organ player, the guitar player. It's always been that way for me in this music.
Okay. Now, Addison, I was doing my homework, and I saw that, you know, to me, you've just been a student of music all your life, and you even teach, right? But what I really would like to know is, how did you develop your unique style of play, blending blues, soul, jazz, and all of that together?
I think that primarily just came from my love for music first. So just the listening to so much different styles of music. Actually, I grew up dancing some hip hop. I used to be like into popping and locking. So actually a lot of like the hip hop stuff that I know and getting like where all that stuff was sampled from, that actually comes from like the dance community. So I think that just gave me a different connection to the music that was beyond just, oh, I love to play, right? I mean, I do love to play, but I love to be a fan and a listener and inspired by music. So yeah, just those experiences. And then just growing up playing so many different styles, playing at blues jams, playing with my friends who played straight ahead, or being in California, so loving reggae music. That just really all comes out in my playing. So.
Okay. Now, I often talk about, you know, when I listen to music, it's really the songs that I feel that really move me. Are there certain songs or albums that are top of mind when you were a kid that really kind of moved you and got you to kind of say, I think I might want to do this?
100%. I mean, on the jazz side of things, I think of Number One Green Street by Grant Green.
Okay.
That's a really great trio record, stripped down, just guitar, bass, and drums. Kind of like what we're doing, but really with like a swing feel as the basis of the music. That was one of the first albums that really inspired me. And I mean, at that point in time, I think I must have been 12 or 13, like hearing that there were notes, I was like, I don't know what that is. You know, it felt like outer space or something, you know? So I guess, before that, recordings by B.B. King, Albert King, the great blues guitarists, those were all things that inspired me. Midnight Blue, Kenny Burrell, that's another album that was big for me early on.
Yeah, Kenny.
But I think it was kind of like my whole love for different styles. If I really had to name you albums, it would be so random, not even guitar based necessarily.
Yeah.
So,
No, it goes like that sometimes.
yeah.
Talk to me about, is there a pivotal moment in your musical career that really kind of shaped your approach to playing?
For me, I think it's when I left being a sideman and started my own bands, or started being a part of bands. Because when I started playing music, it was like that. It was, you were in a band. You're a teenager being in punk bands, or ska bands in Southern California. And then, going to school and becoming a sideman, it was, I spent a lot of years being a sideman. But I think once I started Jungle Fire with those cats, that was a big pivotal turn for me, learning how to make records in the way that I know how to make records now. And that is a very traditional, old way of everybody in the room, everybody playing together, not necessarily a click track or a set of headphones on. Everyone's just being in the room and really in the moment. So for me, that was a giant pivotal time for me. And being, I would say, Jungle Fire was 100% not only a pivotal time for me as a musician, but a pivotal time for me to become an artist, because those guys gave me all the tools and records and experiences to go on and form the White Blinds, and even to now with Addison forming Fat Produce.
Okay. It's really interesting that you mentioned being in the same room, because I remember talking with Mike Noriega, I think it was last year, about making an album. He was talking about, bringing all these people out, and I was like, why can't you just do it online? And he looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, that's not how I want to do this.
No.
So I really get that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Even when I look back to footage of soul artists back in the day, you always saw someone in the room with them kind of creating, right? It was never just them by themselves or anything like that. So I appreciate that. Mike, another thing I'd like to ask you, what is your mindset as a drummer with Fat Produce in contrast to, say, White Blinds? Is it different, similar? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, there's a lot more space because we don't have an organ.
Right.
So, but I think for me, and the way I think about the band is very similar to how I think about an organ trio, is really making something happen with the rhythm between the guitar and the drums. And with the way that I tune my drums, it gives a false sense of another bass thing happening, because it's higher pitched than the actual upright bass. So it gives the illusion that more is happening. But I also think, for me in this trio format, it's a lot more danger, because you don't have that pad of the organ to lean on. So Addison has to do a lot of, I always say he has to do a lot of the heavy lifting. The bass player and I have to really just kind of lock it in. Maybe the bass gets to be a little bit freer than, say, a White Blinds kind of situation, because we're filling up more space. There's more air to fill up. And, arrangement-wise, Addison really has to make all the chordal decisions make sense, as opposed to him and the organist would be doing that. So not having an organist on the bandstand and it's just him and a bassist, it's dangerous.
It's exposed.
It's exposed, very exposed. But I think, as I always say to him, taking on that challenge and really leaning into it is going to make us stand out from everybody else.
I love that. I was listening to it today in the car, just letting it bump, and I love the sound. It feels good. It's very refreshing. I love organ trio, but I can't say that I missed it. I didn't feel like anything was missing when I was listening to this. So, that's fantastic. What I'd love to really know is what kind of inspired Fat Produce, and where does the name come from?
That's him. That's all him.
I mean, it was, I think, so long ago that I came up with it that I wish I could have the exact story. But I think me and my friends growing up in Los Angeles, we had so many names for so many random projects that never became anything. Like, this is my friends I just grew up with and jammed with and stuff. So that was just one name that for some reason just kind of kept resurfacing in the little notebook, you know,
Okay.
the band name notebook. Um, and I mean, I think one of the reasons that we chose it initially is because it kind of harkens back or inspires this kind of hip hop, LA hip hop thing. I mean, that's originally, it's like, okay, how can it be fat but be produce at the same time? Right?
Yeah.
So then thinking about, okay, we have like mangoes, we have apples, we have these beautiful fruits. Those are kind of fat in their own way,
Yeah.
right? And tying that into Miami,
Right.
it just seemed like there was any name that I had written down that one somehow related to what we were doing. You know, I think really with that hip hop connection, it just seemed street. It seemed hip hop to me.
Okay. Okay. And again, what inspired like you guys to come together and really do this?
Well, we had this gig as a duo, and Addison was using a looper at this venue called the Cleat, which is owned by a friend of ours named Danny Gonzalez. And initially, we were just doing hip hop breaks, and Addison was, playing just the classic stuff, and I would just be locking down the break beat.
Oh.
And it was a crazy gig because we were playing the gig, and it was like storming on either side of us. So we're like in this cut in this place, and there's like rain going everywhere. And I remember saying to him, "This is really cool. We should find a bass player." And that was kind of like, this is really cool. I like this. It's like all the stuff that I was really into. And anyone who's followed my career doing original music, it's those classic kind of breaks that were sampled from great soul jazz records. A lot of them sampled from my favorite drummer, Idris Muhammad. So, once we got a bass player involved, and we work with a really great bass player out here named Nestor Del Prado, Cuban guy. He, kind of just really kind of solidified everything. And then we started doing what we needed to do, and that was get in a room and start writing tunes.
Okay. All right. What's the sound that you're going for as Fat Produce? And you kind of talked about it, but I want you to dive a little deeper. Who are those that influence the sound?
Yeah, I mean, I think to put the label on it, that would just be soul jazz, right?
Okay.
Now, exactly what that means, that's where you sort of have to get into the specifics. So, I mean, you have straight ahead jazz with the influence of soul or funk music, right? So on kind of the surface level, that's what that means. But, the great players like Grant Green or George Benson or Idris Muhammad or any of these people that made that music, when you would listen to a record of theirs or watch a live performance, it wasn't just, okay, now you have jazz with a funk beat, or now you have, I mean, that's kind of what the name soul jazz would imply. But just hearing those recordings, and there would be a Latin influence tune, like a bossa, a swing tune, something with a break beat, right? So these recordings where each song is kind of a different style, a different journey in music. And that was really inspiring, not to be like, okay, we just have soul influenced jazz, right? So it's just a backbeat behind a tune, right? So that's kind of where we are going sound wise, is okay, now we have these different styles, these different genres that can all kind of be put under one umbrella soul jazz term, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's all blended together beautifully. And, I think thinking about Mike's past and the different genres, he's also a percussionist. It's very lively. And I think the way it all kind of gets melded together is fantastic. The debut 45, Sticky Beats and Sun, it's releasing on 3/22 from F Spot Records. How did y'all land on F Spot, and what made that the right label for this project?
Well, obviously, I have a long-standing relationship with David over there at F Spot Records. Not only is he the head of the label, but he's also the band leader for the Bombillas, which we share that band together.
Yeah.
But when I came to Miami and Addison and I started writing music together, not only for Fat Produce, but for the Glades. I just felt that this project and a good friend of mine, Renee Camacho, who's the bassist on this record, who's out in LA and plays with War. Both of those people, David behind the board, Renee on the bass, and Addison and I writing songs, that was the perfect marriage. And Addison, trusted me and trusted my desire to kind of push that agenda and get us back out to LA, because we had been here 2 years. He had went back, but I hadn't been back. The first time I went back to LA was when we recorded the record last July. And so, Dave has upgraded the studio and it's really grown a lot. And so I just felt like Dave, Renee being back in LA, us being Angelinos, it just made sense.
Okay. Now, with Sticky Beats and Sun, which instrumental moves you more? I'd love to hear from each of you on that.
I mean, there's such different tracks, and when you end up hearing the full-length record, you're gonna see how also it just keeps getting more varied from tune to tune. So, I mean, I love the A side because that's such a soul jazz kind of really in that vein when we think of soul jazz, right? With that drum groove, that kind of like straight ahead funky thing happening.
Yeah.
So I think to me, yeah, I love that because that just seems like so much really when you hear that genre term, that's maybe what you would think of more so than some of the other stuff on there potentially.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to counter that and say, I think Sun, because it's not something you expect. How that song came about was Addison was playing this riff that was just an exercise, but it was so funky and so different. And, we call it our country funk opus, but he was just killing this thing. And I was like, I have to find the beat for it, and reached into the grab bag and came out. And, I'm really surprised how that one came together. Like you said, Sticky Beats, spot on the nose, what you were to expect in a soul jazz setting, but not what to expect from a guitar, upright bass, and drums. I think we put our own stank on it, our own thing in there. But Sun, I think, really represents thinking outside the box. And I think, like Addison mentioned, when you get the full-length record in your hands, it's a full and complete, meal, entree, main course, dessert. It's all there. And anyone that knows my background knows I'm pretty much, and I learned this in Jungle Fires, give the audience a wide variety of yourself. Don't just give them on the nose things. So I think, I brought that to this project. Addison brought his stuff to the project, and you'll hear a guitar, upright bass, and drums in some ways you never thought you would hear.
I love the A side. I felt like, I got something of Grant Green in there, but when I heard the beat, and I'll be vulnerable, I don't know how to describe it, but the way that you open with the drums, with the hi-hat at the very beginning like that, like I felt hip hop with that. I felt funky, and that really moved me. I really love how that opens. It grabs you right away, and you're right, it does sound different than the A. But can you kind of talk to me about, how would you describe how you're opening with the drums on that, Mike?
I just, like any great drum intro, it's something that I really want people to say, what the fuck was that? Wait, what happened? Rewind that. That's what every drummer wants. It's not necessarily a very difficult thing I played, but I want you to go, wait, I was not expecting that. Rewind that again, because it just hit me upside the head. And, when we're in composing mode, there's no I'm coming up with the drum thing. If Addison has an idea, we're going to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. If I have an idea for guitar or bass, like, we're in this to get the best song that we can get, and something that makes us, okay, this feels good. It's got the wiggle. It's got everything we need, and if it meets those requirements, whether I come up with it or he comes up with it, it doesn't matter. But that one, I wanted is downbeat, I just wanted you to go. And again, I don't necessarily know if it was a hip hop thing, I would say if there was an influence from that, that would be Steve Ferroni, Average White Band. Go pick up the live record,
Okay.
live in Ohio. He plays all kinds of those open hi-hat things. I call them barks, bzz, 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 like they're barking at you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's if that came from anything, it came from him.
Wow. Now I got to go back and listen. I love that. And to what you said, I just keep lifting the needle and putting it back for that couple seconds. I used to make beats, many chapters ago. And so stuff like that really moves me. But I love that. Now let's talk about the names. I get Sticky Beats, but what about Sun? How did y'all come up with the names for this? Don't tell me that there's a notebook and they just surfaced to the top. I need the details.
That's all Duffy on that one. That's a Duffy phrase right there. A lot of Duffy phrases made it into the records. That's definitely a Duffy phrase when he's excited about a nice lick or something. It's like, son,
Yo, son, did you kill that right now, son?
Okay.
So yeah, no, it's because he played and I was like, yo, son, what is that? Play that again. And then we have phone recordings of us in like iPhone recordings, because that's how we all write music these days.
Okay.
And he'll play something and we'll record it, and I'll just give a stupid name. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't stick, or he'll give the name. I mean, I think we had like some silly ones. Like one time, one of them's called Untitled Cannoli. You know what I mean? Like
that didn't make the cut.
But it's just like when we're in the moment, I'll just say something just to say it. And Son, I think it encompasses that song, because when you hear it, it's not what you're expecting. So you're like, yo, son, what was that?
Yeah, okay. That's dope. I dig that. Let's go a little deeper with this. What stands out to you about those recording sessions? Or is there anything memorable? Was there like a breakthrough moment or maybe something funny that happened? I'd love it if you could give us a lens in.
I mean, we got some great enchiladas on lunch break. It's been a while since we had legit Mexican food, so that was a great time. No. I mean, for me, it's like just that experience that Michael was talking about of the recording live to tape in the studio, and just, flying out there and really knowing, okay, we have 2 days to do this, and a lot of songs to get down and not a lot of time, and there's no real editing being done to it. So just that, trying to be as present in the moment and relaxing and, considering just all the music that we were trying to play and what we've been practicing, and just trying to make it happen there in the studio, and just seeing that all come together so well, so gratifying and exciting and fun as well. But to me, just, the overall experience of like, all right, we got to go in there and we got to do it just how we've been practicing it, and just seeing that come to fruition is great. So that was my favorite thing, was the whole experience encapsulated like that.
Okay.
My favorite experience was we didn't rehearse with Renee before we went in the studio.
Okay.
And we didn't give Renee any idea of what the bass parts were going to be. All our recordings were just guitar and drums. And the reason why they were that way is because I trust Renee so much. I've known him for almost 2 decades. He's one of the best bass players you've never heard of. Okay. And I knew that he was going to bring the right amount of swing to Addison's guitar playing. And so watching them connect after the first take was my favorite moment, when he looked at me and went, I get it. I get it why you call this dude. I get it, And then Dave never heard Renee's playing either. So seeing those two guys, I mean, I know what he was going to do, but just seeing those two guys look at this cat, and he just has a sound, he has a swagger. Not many people know this about Renee, but he spent a lot of years playing with Poncho Sanchez, the great Latin jazz conguero, and now he works with War. He's worked with Kevin Eubanks. He's just like the most unassuming person, but like when this guy gets a bass in his hand, I don't care if it's an upright, a baby bass, or an electric bass, it's nothing but fire. Nothing. And so, as you say, do your homework. Find out about Rene Camacho. He's a legend. He's a legend that most people don't know about.
Man, that's wild. Okay, all right. How do you know when a song's done? At what point do you say, all right, that's it?
God, I don't really know if you ever really know if a song's done. You just got to trust your gut.
You just stop.
Yeah,
you just stop writing it.
Okay.
You don't really know. I mean, again, there's probably a feeling. I would say that, sometimes we'll hit a song, we're just not sure, but we just trust each other that it's gonna work out. I mean, that's why this is happening, because we trust each other in the moment, in the writing sessions. Even if we do some stuff that we're not 100% sure it's going to work, we just trust each other. So you just trust that's going to happen. Obviously, working with a guy like David, he'll give you his 2 cents if it's not happening.
Okay. All right. When you look into the crystal ball, what does the future look like for Fat Produce? I keep hearing y'all mention something like an album, and that you had 2 days, you recorded all these songs. Can we expect a full length, and when? Are y'all thinking about doing live shows? Give us a scoop.
What's the exact release date?
I think it's the top of May. We do have 10-song record coming out on Play-Doh green vinyl for those people who love the green. We got some hip hop inspired art design.
Oh, okay.
So that's going to be really super cool. What else can we say about the?
Well, we have some potential West Coast dates over the summer.
Yeah.
So that's some shows on the West Coast. We have some record release shows in Miami planned. So yeah, just performing, more recording on the horizon as well.
Yep.
Coming up in June. So as we're releasing the first full length, we'll be back in the studio working on the next part of the project. So
Wow. Do we have an album title yet?
yes, Fresh Squeeze.
No.
All him.
Oh, really?
All him.
Fat Produce Fresh Squeeze.
I like that.
Which is the song title. It's the song title on the record too.
Okay. What about West Coast shows? When you say West Coast, what are you talking about?
So we're going to do something in Southern California, something in the Central Coast, and something in San Francisco. Still kind of to be determined, but we're working on it right now. Renee's going to be off the road with War, so we're going to be able to do some shows with him. And it's if all goes well, the first show is going to be a nice F spot, Homecoming. And hopefully we'll have our good friend Jamie Allensworth open up the show singing, as he's got a record in the works right now that David is working on. And so yeah, it should be a cool night. Josh from the Bombillas hopefully be spinning on the wheels of steel, and it'll be a full F spot experience. But again, we're still kind of getting all the things together. As far as Miami, we're having our record release May 3rd at the Bridge with a really great band from Miami called Anamoya. And it's going to be a really great experience. And Travis from Tiki Tumbao is going to be spinning records in between the sets.
You read my mind, because I wanted to really dive into Tiki Tumbao, Soul Vaccinators. Talk to me about your connection and everything that's going on with Tiki Tumbao. I'm a huge fan of Travis. Shout out to Travis if he's watching. But let us know, your connection to Tiki Tumbao.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, that was all through Eddie Garcia, drummer, band leader from Tony and the Kings, and
Love
also
Tony. Love Tony.
Definitely, absolutely, great band, great records, great live show, and obviously Eddie's my partner in Soul Vaccinators as well. So I met Travis through Eddie. That's how I know him. And I mean, we were at that West Bird studio, the first recording studio he set up, sort of here in West Kendall in Miami, and one of those. So I don't think it's the one that we released, but some of the music that we have for the Soul Vaccinators, that was one of the first sessions that he did at that studio. So as far as when I met Eddie and Travis, that was all like ground up as far as his label was concerned. So involved day one with that.
And then I met Travis with Addison because I played congas on the Soul Vaccinator 45 that's currently out.
Yeah.
So Addison, we were writing music with Adam Scone. We hadn't called the band the Glades yet, but we were writing, and during those sessions, Adam asked me to play percussion on the Glades, what will become the Glades music. And so when Adam asked me to do that, I, of course, obliged. And then Addison heard me. He's like, hey, man, can you come out to this Westbird studio and do this session? That's how I met Travis. I saw what he was doing. It was reminding me very much of what David was doing back in the F-Spot days, in the early days.
Okay.
And so I just said, hey, we're doing this record with Adam Scone. And I don't know what it's called yet, but you'd be interested in, I think we're going to have a full length. Do you think you'd be interested in putting it out? And he said yes. And so, you know, not only does Addison have a good amount of music coming out with them, but together we'll have a record with Adam Scone under the title The Glades coming out probably in the fall.
Wow, that's super exciting. That is super exciting. And just kind of building on that, you know, when I think of Tiki Tumbo, that was for a lot of us the first kind of lens into Miami indie stuff, the way that we see it here. Can you give us a little bit more about what the indie scene is like in Miami in terms of the funk, the soul jazz, soul, and everything like that? For those that aren't out there, that don't get to see it on the weekends, that kind of thing.
I mean, it's a thriving scene right now, I would say. And so many unique bands, unique individual musicians. I mean, I think pretty much any night of the week I could go out and see some really, really good music. So that speaks a little bit to how the scene is going right now. But yeah, so many great bands and people that I really wish other places in the U.S. and elsewhere would learn about as well.
Yeah, I'm trying.
There is so much talent. Yeah.
Mike, what was it like for you going from California to Miami?
Well, I mean, it was a big life change. You know, I was, you know, I'd gotten off the road with Delvon, and then COVID happened, and the only thing I did really musically was sneak into a studio every once in a while to make the Bombillas record, but wasn't really playing. And then Adam Scone reached out and said, maybe you should come to Florida because we're playing. And I said, sure. I mean, I didn't really know what it was going to offer. So I came here, and then I had no idea. I have toured through Miami but I didn't really know the bones of what was going on. So when I got here, and obviously we played that first night together with Addison, I started meeting more cats in the scene, and a guy named Armando Lopez, who I think is one of the most fantastic drummers in this town, really took a liking to me and kind of just showed me what was happening in this town. Because, you know, Florida is definitely, the North is very different than the South. And Dade County is just, it's got a history of just so many cultures here. Obviously it's Latin America, it's the Caribbean. You know, when you get down here, most people you'll walk into neighborhoods, no one's speaking English. There's, you know, they could be speaking Spanish, they can speak in, you know, Creole French, Haitian stuff. And all of that mix of people make for a very fertile environment for great music. Like Addison said, you can go out any night of the week. There are a lot of great bands here. I mean, if I'm just going to give your audience some that impressed me, Armando's band, which is called the Electric Kiff. I think it's the Weather Report 5.0.
Okay.
You know, they're just incredible. There's another trio here called the Lemon City Trio. I wouldn't necessarily call them a classic organ jazz trio. They're just kind of like space funk, you know, but really good. We obviously got Tony and the Kings, and those guys obviously played a long time with Jason Joshua and the Beholders.
Yeah.
That crew of guys has held down Eddie and Tony and all those guys. They've held down the soul and the funk thing here for decades, you know. And then the jazz scene here is super rich. I had no idea. I mean, it's on par. A lot of the cats that are playing here are some of the best you'll hear.
Wow.
And so I think that, and then we've got all the Latin stuff here. I mean, the Cuban influence is insane. So Cuban, Venezuelan, Puerto Rican, Colombian, they're all represented here. Dominican, they're all represented, and their culture is represented in full bloom. You know, you can go out to Calle Ocho and see something that you would see in Havana as good, I believe. And so, and then we have the reggaeton thing, which is huge here. You know, so you have that. And then the house music, all the DJ culture that's been here for decades, dance music. So all of that kind of feeds into each other. And as much as Miami's a big city, it's a small city. The footprint of Miami is not very big.
Wow.
So we cross paths all the time.
That's cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you might be playing a straight ahead gig and like a house DJ may come in and just have a drink and check it out. Or, you know, a rapper or a reggaeton artist or a salsa guy. You just never know like who's going to cross your path, who's going to be at your gig. So it's super cool that way. And it's definitely, it's condensed because we're in such a small area. With LA, I mean, it's like 20 boroughs.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And everyone's kind of like, people that live on the west side don't really sometimes mix with people in the valley and people in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like we just, but here, like when you're in Dade proper, you're going to run across a lot of people and you're going to run across, I think, some of the most gifted musicians I've seen in my entire life that are here. It's just a crazy little place. That's why there's so much history here of great music that's come out of here because of the cultural mix.
I love that. Thank you. Now, I got to ask, Mike, you know I'm a soul guy. Who's a soul artist from Miami that we haven't heard of yet but should keep an eye out for?
God, I'd probably be the last person to ask about that. But, I mean, if you're talking about currently, are you talking about what's on the scene now currently?
Yeah.
Or are you talking, I mean, I would say if Tony's a great soul singer, I think he's getting his moment. Obviously, Jason is if we're talking about the past 5-6 years, Jason Joshua, you know, came out of here and really made his mark, especially going to the West Coast.
Yeah.
But I think Tony's getting his opportunity, and I think he's really untapped. And I think Eddie, like you said, Eddie's doing a great job with that band as well as the other guys that are in that band, really kind of setting a Miami soul standard.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing a great job. There is also a cat named Sema Funk, who's kind of like, I don't know, he's like a Cuban James Brown on steroids. And he's had a little moment coming out of here. He's definitely an incredible performer, and the band is top notch. There's a guy that I've recently come across, that both of us have come across, a guy named Jason Spencer, who he's been kicking around for a long time. Very classic story, right? A guy kicking around for a long time and finally met the right cats to get an opportunity. So I think Travis is brewing up something really nice with Jason that you may see here in the next year or two.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I appreciate that. Fellas, I asked this one question to all my guests at the very end. Would you be willing to share a quote or mantra that's close to heart or maybe top of mind?
Absolutely. That's, if you take care of the music will take care of you. And that's something I've always lived by and believed in. And, you know, I just try to keep my head down and practice and do it for the love of the music. And that's done pretty well for me thus far. So I'm going to keep going with that.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I would say if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah. I love that. Someone said that. I'm trying to think who it was. I can't even remember now. We've had a lot of guests come through. But those are both fantastic quotes right there. Here is the debut 45 right here.
Ooh, it's pretty.
Look at that translucent green. 3/22/24 F-Spot Records, official release date. Guys, where can we stay in touch with you? How can we, keep looped on what's going on with Fat Produce?
Well, you can follow our Instagram page, fatproduce_. Spotify, we have a Spotify page as well. Okay. The F-Spot Records website, anything related to F-Spot Records, the Instagram page as well. That's where updates on our records will be coming out on. Okay. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I love it. Any last minute words for our viewers and those that'll be streaming afterwards?
I would just say, take a chance.
I love that. Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. Everybody, make sure you go check out the new 45 from Fat Produce on F-Spot Records. We're out of here. Waxvillain, Seattle, Washington. Have a good night, y'all.
Peace.